We need to start from scratch. We need to clarify the key concepts behind the work you do and to try to even formally explain your activities, your tasks, the things that you work with. The explanation is intended to be formal in order to be clear and unambiguous. Such an approach is extremely important for making it possible to design effective data structure, but also for knowledge transfer. Sometimes this process is called domain conceptualization. We define the dictionary, we introduce the formal definitions that are intended to be helpful for anyone trying to make a system that will somehow connect this data to their actual use by some IT technology through the process of data collection, maintenance, analysis. And we are going to be using the definitions that have been introduced in the process of setting up your Access Service data application I have mentioned before. As I already mentioned, we are using this application as a starting point because this is something that quite a large community of people and academic organizations stand behind, so we assume there is a good enough consensus on those definitions. The service is any assistance you provide to one researcher or support staff in one or multiple matters. In simpler words, it's a single answer from your office to a question made by one researcher. When you discuss with him or her, and he or she may ask different questions in different topics, this is something that your Access considers as one service. This one service can be related to different topics. This one service may be delivered in a blink of an eye, by simply responding to the question by phone or by email, or it may imply that you have to take him or her by the hand, in a figure of speech, and spend some time in visiting multiple service points, in some desk research to find the proper way to solve some problems. Yes, some services may be easy and simple to deliver, but some others may be quite complex, time and effort consuming. Let's talk about this more now. Let me first clarify this basic versus advanced service distinction. There is a new European Commission policy concept, maybe you have heard of it, called ERA Talent Management Platform. This is a new buzzword in your Access community, in fact something that your Access will transition to in the future. We don't want to get deeper into this important high-level policy document now. If you want to find out more about it, click on the link below to follow up. ERA Talent Management Platform clearly distinguishes between basic services and advanced services. Basic service, according to this policy concept, is something that you provide on your own. An advanced service is something that you provide in collaboration with some external stakeholders. What's the rationale behind it? Obviously, the European Commission as a policy maker wants to go further from where you, as a service center in an academic organization, currently stand, and to extend the scope of services to diversify. Growth is the essence of any policy, from local to global, and that's a good thing, of course. But obviously we all have our limits, we all have our capacities, and it's not possible for us to learn at the rate which is needed to achieve this growth, to diversify our skills, to go beyond specialization into one field and to become expert for many of them, because all this is simply not possible. By default, we cannot count on our funders, our managers, to invest more money in increasing our human resources volume and diversification. So what's the point then? How to enable, how to facilitate this growth? The answer is quite simple: by collaborating with those who know, by working collaboratively with those experts in other fields where we want to diversify and where we want to expand. With local collaborations, you get access to specific service providers helping you in quickly resolving some issues for which you would otherwise need to invest in some research efforts. For example, many times it is better to consult legal advisors or law firms regarding some very specific researcher's entry barrier than to research the matter by yourself. There are specialized companies which can help you in quickly resolving the accommodation issue. Obviously, all this reduces the burden of your work and it makes you more available for contributing with what you know the best. This approach may increase the actual cost of service because it may involve some fee to partners, or maybe not. Sometimes you may have long-term collaboration contracts which are based on some other benefits for those partners. So far, we have been talking about international researchers as our key target group. But this is very simplistic view, and also it may largely depend on the very specific scopes of work of individual service centers. But let's provide the widest possible coverage, again in context of how your access network of service centers prescribe it. Check out the formal definitions of the specific types of researchers you may be assisting in your service center. Incoming researcher is the researcher who wishes or is in the process of continuing his or her career in your country or organization. Returning researcher is the researcher who wishes or is in the process of continuing his or her career in your country or organization with some former working experience in your country or organization. In the narrowest interpretation, the former two groups constitute what we refer to as international researchers. Still, if your office is providing assistance to researchers' mobility in general, then you probably work also with outgoing researchers, the researchers who wish or are in the process of continuing their career abroad. The next group is specific to career development centers, which support also resident researchers, those who currently work in your country organization. And finally, some support centers provide support to other support centers. Knowledge sharing is a building block of the Euraccess community. The examples of good practices continuously flow across the network, producing the multiplying impact. Classification of the ways of service provision is interesting because it is a simple way to formalize the difficulty of the specific assistance. It was again the result of quite long discussion on how to distinguish between the services regarding their complexity, how to determine their value, how to determine actual methodology used to implement those services. We established three groups or three classes of services. One is signposting. It's only a guidance or referral to the specific source of information and assistance. You can signpost someone to some website or a web page or another office, so basically that costs you peanuts because you receive a phone call and you just communicate information in the real time. You don't have to make any note about it, reminder or whatever. However, this is more difficult to track, exactly because of extremely short duration of the service. When we are talking about tracking signposting, there should be something like a box where you can make a tick and say there was one service and it was related to this and that category, such as entry conditions, career development or something else. Then there is short inquiry response, immediate delivery of the information and assistance to a researcher, again synchronously, again in real time, again you don't close the conversation to check out for some data or ask someone. You just answer and you're done. This is different than signposting because although it takes very little time, the value of service has been produced immediately, during the contact. In the signposted communication, you actually don't know if this value has been produced at all, because you don't know if the researcher who asked you for assistance followed up on your suggestion to contact third party or to visit some website. And then the most difficult one, a personalized assistant. It is individual or collaborative effort which requires some research, so you need to find some information, you need to call someone, you will need to collect some notes. There is more significant effort needed, and not in real time. You need to call back the researcher, ask for additional information, then do the research again, and all this can be quite time consuming. The communication can be repeated, some meetings may be held, those meetings may be held with the other parties. Often you have to take a researcher by the hand and take him or her to a number of offices and institutions to get something. Personalized assistance is the most difficult type of service because it takes time, it takes lots of effort, it involves also other people, so it's costly. On the other hand, it's easy to track because that's something that you think of for some time and there is certainly a paper trail. The most important part of data you collect is about which service is provided. This data is important as it will highlight the biggest issues in onboarding and other stages of mobility. Thus, such classification may be used to point out to places for improvements, for additional funding, recruitment or procedure changes. There are a number of different service classifications. Probably each organization has its own. So it may appear that it's difficult to build a unique one. In Euraxis we had one which had lots of overlaps, and it was kind of a bit confusing because when you use it sometimes you don't know how to classify some of the services. Then we decided to introduce a new one, and once again the group who worked on Euraxis service data application had been working for a long time to build a new classification. This is the result of work of this group. But you know, this is again outdated because some problems and some inconsistencies have been found in the meantime. If you are part of Euraxis family, you know that it has recently updated Declaration of Commitment in which a new classification was introduced. Needless to say, Univalis project have also its own classification. So many different classifications, what a mess. But hey, that's cool, that's okay. Centralized approach in setting up a data structure will make happy only those who are in the center. Having different views to some domain and some different concepts is not only allowed, it is well regarded, because it drives the productivity, it drives the focus. As long as you have some kind of mapping between the models and classifications you build in your organization and some, let's say, standard ones, having different data structures is cool. If you want to reclassify, you want to make another report to another funder, not something that you keep yourself, then you use their classification. As long as you can have this interoperability, one-to-one mapping between categories, you are fine.